If you hate when people glaze games, you are going to hate this video because I'm going to glaze this game harder than I've glazed any other game on this channel before. And hopefully, if you have played it or if you do play it, you will understand why. What do you get when you combine JRPGs, incredibly fun boss fights, action RPGs, and anime? You get a game that I've been looking for my entire life. And luckily, I was around when it released 2 years ago. This is Granblue Fantasy Relink, a 3D action RPG story game that revolves around boss fights and JRPG progression. And I need you to understand this, so come here, make sure that you're listening attentively and that you can hear me completely. Granblue Fantasy Relink is one of my favorite games that I have ever played. And if you don't believe me, I made an entirely new YouTube channel around the release of the game 2 years ago to cover the game and make videos on it because I just loved playing it so much. And you can ask any of your friends who've played it, I guarantee you they will say the same thing. Or you can just ask the game's reviews because all of them are absolutely glowing. In fact, this game is so beloved to myself and others that players literally complained that there was not enough to spend money on in the game because they wanted the game to continue its service and keep adding on new bosses. Now the thing is, Granblue Fantasy Relink was never meant to be a live service game, but despite that, they still added new patches after the game came out. So people were really just hoping they would keep adding new characters and new bosses, and luckily they just announced their new major expansion, Endless Ragnarok, something that nobody saw coming, but everybody is welcoming, which is why I'm making this video right now to tell you guys all about the game. I want to thank Games and Granblue Fantasy Relink for sponsoring this video because it is just so awesome to get a sponsored video for a game that I love from the bottom of my heart. So you might be asking at this point, what is Granblue Fantasy Relink? As mentioned before, Granblue Fantasy Relink is a 3D action RPG story game that revolves around boss fights and JRPG progression. And after you've beaten the main story of it, it is fully co-opable, meaning that you can play with all of your friends. It's a game that features many different characters, weapons, and tools for building characters, as well as other progression systems that allows you to constantly improve your personal damage, level up the characters that you really like, build your own teams, and reap the benefits in very challenging content. If you really like hard boss fights and building characters to challenge even harder boss fights, Relink is that game. Because not only is the character progression satisfying, the boss fights actually get very challenging and have a lot of mechanics to learn. I'm not gonna lie, I'm going back and adding this in post because I do not think I conveyed how ridiculous these bosses are. There is a boss that literally takes all of his mechanics from an earlier hard version and does time stops with them, stalls them, and forces you to remember the order in which he casts his abilities while you are dodging hundreds of split-second lasers that will one-shot you while dodging ground AoEs. This is insane, and it's so fun. So let me give you a basic overview of the gameplay. Granblue Fantasy Relink features roughly 30 distinct boss encounters and over 100 quests, each with varying difficulties and different challenges. Throughout these boss fights, you'll encounter things with multiple phases, lots of ground AoEs, different kinds of puzzles to solve mid-fight, and other really cool core mechanics. On your end, you're going to have a different variety of skills and teammates, the ability to dodge and perfect dodge, block and perfect block, and also have other ways to enhance your build if you're already really good at the game, or you can make the game significantly easier for you with different builds if you're struggling. You'll defeat bosses to get different boss drops and parts of the bosses, and the parts will allow you to level up weapons. Each character has a ton of different weapons with different stats, but in the end game, you can farm for a special terminus weapon. You have higher and higher tiers of weapon progression, and each weapon has its own special traits that can enhance your build. Every single character, weapon, and sigil comes free with the game. There's no daily play limits and no stamina, and if you don't have every character, you can unlock them via doing different boss fights or other in-game challenges. Now, personally, I'm a really big fan of all the characters in Granblue Fantasy Relink because they're based off of Granblue Fantasy, which is one of the oldest gachas around and has some of the most amazing designs in all of gacha games. Granblue Fantasy Relink is not a gacha game, but the perfect amalgamation of taking different action RPG and JRPG elements and combining it with the characters already featured in a created universe. So, as mentioned before, every character in Granblue Fantasy Relink is free once you own the game. You can buy them if you want, but they're easy to earn if you put in the time, because for example, Sandalphon, the strongest character in the game at the moment, is recruitable after defeating Lucilius roughly 1 to 3 times, depending on how lucky your drops are. All of the characters in the game feel different to play, and there are tons to choose from, with new ones being added in patches post-launch. They all have their own unique skills. You can equip 4 at a time, and the ones that you use depend on your playstyle and also the bosses that you're fighting. For example, Catalina and Lancelot can freeze bosses to allow you to skip some phases and dish out extra damage, but some bosses can't actually be frozen, so it's not always worth taking as a skill. Each character also features their own level progression, skill tree progression, weapon mastery progression, and sigil builds. Now, in this video, I've already talked a lot about builds in Granblue Fantasy Relink, but I'm not going to go into detail on what you should be running. I just want you to understand understand how flexible the building is in this game. Ultimately, Granblue Fantasy Relink is about picking a character, fighting bosses, making your character strong, and then fighting harder bosses. Early game bosses aren't too challenging, but later on, bosses can get really difficult and will require built characters or solid game knowledge to defeat. Building is a main part of the game, and if you are a fan of gacha games, you'll like this even better because it doesn't limit how much you play or your ability to earn certain things for your build. This game's build system is based around sigils. These sigils can be earned a ton of different ways, whether it's fighting bosses, buying them from the shop, appraising curios, or doing the in-game transmutation at Sierra's shop. These sigils will all have unique effects, things like adding more crit rate, adding more attack, increasing your damage dealt when you're in a combo, increasing your combo finisher's damage, making you gain ultimate faster, lowering the cooldown of your abilities the more you hit enemies. There's tons of different sigils with different effects, and you can stack a different amount of them depending on what the sigil is. For example, the damage cap sigil will allow you to hit higher damage because your damage will be capped at a certain point, and the damage cap will raise that cap of damage. I really hope what I said made sense. So the most damage cap sigils you can have is 4. However, for some sigils like supplementary damage, when you have them level 15, you can only use 3 of them at a time. Some sigils also have a give and take, like the Tyranny sigil, which grants a huge attack buff at the cost of losing max HP. There is a lot of RNG when it comes to sigil farming, but there are a ton of different ways to get them, and earning sigils and building your characters is part of the core gameplay loop, because I cannot tell you how awesome it is to start off doing basically no damage and end the game doing something like 100,000 damage per basic attack. It's really, really gratifying. And on top of that, in their version 1.3 patch, they ended up adding a sigil merging feature that allows you to risk 2 sigils for a chance to get the perfect one based off the stats of the sigils you're combining. Each sigil has a main stat, but they can also have a secondary stat that is the same level as the main stat. And if you combine 2 of these plus sigils, you have a chance to combine different stats from those 2 sigils together to make a plus sigil with 2 of the stats that you wanted. And the really important thing about Relink when it comes to RNG is that you can literally save scum it. Relink allows you to play the game how you would like to play it. So if you want to save before you try and reroll sigils, you can totally do that. You can ensure that you don't waste any resources and that your rolls always go the way that you want to if you're willing to save and reset the game, which is, in my opinion, something that a lot of modern games are lacking. I personally love the sigil system because you can do wacky things with it, like lower the cooldown of your ability significantly or create an unlimited perfect dodging build. My favorite custom build is my Catalina build that has a ton of HP drain and recovery. Catalina is hard to play because her stand that does most of her damage disappears if you dodge, but if you build her to face tank all of the damage and heal through it when you deal damage, she's an unkillable machine up until the super high endgame levels, which, well, they get really hard. Granblue Fantasy Relink also allows you to pick from tons of different weapons that can all have different stats and complement your build in different ways, though most characters will just end up taking the strongest weapon overall, which is an endgame weapon called the Terminus weapon. But you do have to farm an endgame boss for that, so it can take you a little bit to get it. Beyond that, you can also augment your weapons, and by leveling all of the weapons on a specific character, you can get even more bonus stats for that character. So there are just tons of different ways to progress your account and your characters, and the best part is none of it is time gated, and all of it is at your own leisure and at your pace. The ability for me to be able to queue up with my friends and fight bosses whenever we're all feeling like it and not being beholden to something like a stamina system is just really, really nice to see in a game like this. Not only is it a character collector, but it's also a character builder, a JRPG, a boss fighter, a story game, and an amazing co-op game where I've made a ton of amazing memories. With their first expansion, Endless Ragnarok, coming out very soon on July 9th, there's a ton of brand new content coming out. It'll be the perfect time to jump in, because I know for a fact your friend has told you to get this game and you were skeptical about it because people aren't really playing it anymore. Well, people are going to be playing it again, so you should just get the game, just play it, dude. It's so good. As of right now, there are 6 new confirmed characters for Endless Ragnarok, starting with 2 bosses that they're actually making playable characters, Galanza and Magliel. Galanza is a pretty big dude who has a giant spear and does, well, he hurts when you're fighting against him, so I can only imagine he'll hurt when you're playing as him too. And Magliel fights with a vast arsenal of weapons, also making her like a weapon mage or something. Then we have Beatrix, who is a fan favorite from the original Granblue Fantasy, and in Relink she has different combat stances to improve her personal damage, heal, or defend against strong attacks. I've played her in the beta and she is quite fun. We're also getting Eustace from Granblue Fantasy, and though I don't know much of his lore, people have told me he's pretty cool. So they also just announced one of my personal favorites, Frau, Oh, and Ferial, who probably has one of the best looking 3D models I've ever seen in an anime game. On top of that, they're going to be adding a new solo roguelike game mode that helps you progress faster, giving you tons of different sorts of boss drops and progression items. It allows you to build characters in fun new ways. We're also getting an even higher tier difficulty of quests called the Chaos tier, and I am horrified. In a recent showcase, they also showed off something called Master Styles, which to my understanding are different specializations that help you build your character a specific way. The fact that they're adding this means we're probably going to be getting demolished by new bosses, because I'm 99% sure we're fighting Beelzebub. Also, we have a fight against two of the Eternals, Seofan and Twayan, and I can just tell it's going to be crazy. Endless Ragnarok is also adding summons to the game that will be usable in the Chaos tier quests, and they are really, really cool. But not only do you get to play as summons or summon them to help you in your fights, they also will give you passive stats, so this is going to also help with your character building. In that same showcase, they also said they're going to be addressing buffs and damage cap, which means that build diversity should increase significantly in Ragnarok, and I just hope that they take the time to balance out some more of the characters, because they were doing that in their first few patches, and I think it helped the game a lot. Except I would still really like if Fairy could just do spin attacks to get insane SBA. That would be really nice. Granblue Fantasy Relink Endless Ragnarok will be available on Nintendo Switch 2, PlayStation 4 and 5, and Steam starting on July 9th with full crossplay. And I personally can only hope that Ragnarok is truly endless. Thanks again, Relink, for sponsoring this video, and I cannot wait to see you guys on Endless Ragnarok. Also, if you want to see more Relink content, please go subscribe to my other channel, Brawlter or Braxophone, where I'm going to be covering the game in full as soon as the major expansion launches. Until then, I'll catch you guys next time. Wow, you're still here, huh? Cygames and Relink have actually given me a code to give away to one of you guys for one copy of Granblue Fantasy Relink, so if you are interested, make sure to leave a like on the video and comment down below what Relink character seems coolest to you. You can actually check all of the characters on the official website. The winner will be chosen at random, and I will reply to their comment in about a week or so. Later!